Hello everyone, this is H2Acon here from Online Knights, and today I'm here with another episode of Character Case Files. Today's request is for one of the most iconic characters in the franchise. Flipping back and forth between friend and foe since the series began, 343 Guilty Spark is one hell of a character. Spark began life roughly 100,000 years ago as a human named Chakas. Chakas was born on Earth, then known as Tyrene, and grew up on the outskirts of a city called Marontique. Chakas' father was killed in gang warfare when he was young, leaving him and his sisters having to work in the city to help support the family. When Chakas was about 20, he met Day Chaser Makes Path Long Stretch Morning Riser. Riser, as he was known for short, belonged to a now extinct subspecies of human, known as Homo floresiensis. The pair quickly became friends, and developed a mutually beneficial relationship, Riser helping Chakas to find work, whilst Chakas in turn protected his smaller friend from thugs. One day, Chakas was introduced to a young forerunner named Bornstellar Makes Eternal Lasting. Bornstellar had come to Tyrene to search for ancient artifacts left behind by the Precursors, a hyper-advanced alien race that had dominated the galaxy millions of years ago, before mysteriously vanishing. Chakas and Riser agreed to help Bornstellar with his treasure hunt, and so they served as his guides on Tyrene. While searching an island located in a place called Jamonkin Crater, the trio discovered a cryptum, a forerunner device that kept its occupant in a state of suspended animation, similar to the effects of human cryogenic suspension technology. Bornstellar activated the cryptum and discovered that it contained none other than the Didact, previously the supreme military commander of the Forerunner Empire. The Didact had been in suspension for over 1,000 years, and so it took several days to revive him fully. Once awoken, the Didact revealed to the trio his reason for being sealed in the cryptum, that he had entered a self-imposed exile following his defeat against his political rivals. The Didact took Chakas and the others aboard his ship, which is buried beneath the island, and took them off of Tyrene. Attempting to learn more about what had happened during his absence, he took them on a tour of several worlds. However, he was eventually discovered by his greatest rival, Faber. Faber held the position of Master Builder, nominally the Forerunner's head of state, and so he took the Forerunners, Bornstellar and the Didact, into custody. Faber had no need for the humans though, so Chakas and Riser were both sent to one of the newly completed Halo installations. The installation was home to many research facilities that carried out experiments on humans as part of an attempt to find a cure for the Flood infection. This was not to be their fate, however, as the ring had fallen under the control of Mendicant Bias. Mendicant Bias was a hyper-advanced artificial intelligence that had been in charge of coordinating the Forerunner's defenses against the parasitic Flood outbreak, but he had fallen into rampancy following extended contact with the Flood's Gravemind. By this point, Mendicant Bias had sided with the Flood and declared war upon his old masters, the Halo ring now in its possession posing a major threat to the Forerunners. In an attempt to prevent the rogue AI from being able to use the ring as a weapon against them, the Forerunner researchers still stationed on the ring set it on a collision course with a nearby planet, in the hope of destroying the construct. When the ship bearing Chakas and Riser arrived at the ring, the construct's unstable velocity caused it to crash land. The stasis pod containing Chakas had fallen out of the ship as it broke up in low orbit, and it fell to the ring's surface. A badly injured Chakas was then recovered from his pod a day later by some humans that were native to the installation, and they nursed him back to health. Many of the native humans had recently been rounded up for experimentation, first by the Forerunners and now by Mendicant Bias, so when he was finally back on his feet, Chakas set off with the pair who had taken him in search of a safe place for them all to hide. In fact, their course led them straight towards a central research facility, and the trio only narrowly escaped to safety without being detected. During their wanderings afterwards, Chakas was finally reunited with Riser. He had been lucky enough to survive the crash landing on board the ship, and had, by chance, encountered Chakas and the others. The group, now including Riser, was unfortunately captured soon after, and they then fell into the hands of Mendicant Bias. Due to their familiarity with the Forerunners, especially the Didact himself, Bias considered Chakas and Riser too valuable to have killed, and so the humans were kept alive. As the ring grew closer to the planet, and the rogue AI became increasingly desperate, he eventually forced Chakas to directly interface with the installation, using the human as a pilot to steer the construct to safety. With a lot of luck on his side, Chakas was able to maneuver the ring such that the planetoid passed through the center of the hoop. However, despite a direct impact being prevented, the immense gravitational stresses that the planet exerted on the ring during its passage caused the construct to begin to resonate and shake itself to pieces. Once again, Chakas was saved by an extraordinary stroke of luck, as whilst he had been steering the ring, a whole Forerunner fleet appeared in the system. This fleet was under the command of Bornsteller, who, now working for the librarian, was under orders to rescue the ring and all of the specimens it carried. Bornsteller's ships were able to supply the construct with enough power for it to initiate an emergency slipspace jump. After shedding non-essential sections of the ring to reduce its mass and thus make the transition easier, they steered it through a slipspace portal and to the Ark, where it would go on to receive thorough repairs. In the modern human era, the ring remains considerably smaller than the others in the array, and is now designated Installation 07. Following its rescue, the Forerunner forces then occupied the ring, forcing out Mendicant Bias. Bornsteller himself came aboard to recover Chakas and Riser. However, the rough treatment that Chakas had received during his ordeal proved to be beyond repair. Chakas was hurried to another site, where his consciousness was transferred into an artificial construct, a similar process to composing as seen in Halo 4. As of that point, Chakas ceased to be functionally human, as although he retained all of his memories, he was now a Forerunner monitor. Chakas received a new name, one more befitting of his new configuration. He was designated 343 Guilty Spark, and at the close of the Forerunner Flood War, he was assigned as the Guardian Monitor of one of the 7 installations of the finalized Halo Array, Installation 04. He was present at the fateful activation of the array, which brought a swift conclusion to the galaxy-wide war, and, once the Forerunners had completed their exodus from the galaxy, he remained behind to continue as a custodian of the ring. After over 100,000 years, his long period of solitude was finally broken, when his ring became the focus of one of the most significant conflicts in the Human Covenant War. In the months that followed, Guilty Spark played a major role in many of the pivotal events that turned the tide of the war in humanity's favour. He opposed the Master Chief and Cortana during the Battle of Installation 04, however following the ring's destruction he was no longer bound by protocol, and went on to aid humanity in the Battle of Installation 00, as well as helping to kindle the fires of civil war amongst the Covenant, by his exposing of the lies upon which it was built. At the close of the Battle of the Ark, when he attempted to prevent the UNSC prematurely activating the replacement Installation 04, Spark was engaged by John 117. Although the Spartan emerged victorious and thought the monitor to be destroyed, he had in fact only disabled it. Despite being physically crippled, the AI housed within the construct was still active. Not only did Spark survive his battle with the Master Chief, but he and his wrecked shell somehow also managed to survive the explosion that consumed the Ark. Floating in space, Spark had just enough power to emit a distress beacon which was eventually picked up by UNSC recovery team. He was brought aboard the science vessel UNSC Rubicon, and his electronic form was extracted from the destroyed housing. The researchers attempted to interface with the AI in an attempt to access the wealth of data he possessed. However, this plan backfired horrendously. Whilst feeding them bits of information to keep them distracted, Spark managed to infiltrate the Rubicon's systems, disable the ship's AI, and was soon in complete control of the vessel. After using the ship's environmental controls to incapacitate the crew, Spark then jumped the ship into slipspace towards where he believed he would be able to find the Librarian, one of the last of the Forerunners. And this is where Spark's story ends for now, with him and his hijacked transport on a course to an unknown destination in search of his former masters. Despite his humble beginnings as a labourer on Earth, Chakas and later 343 Guilty Spark became one of the key figures in not just one, but 2 galactic conflicts during his lifetime of over 100,000 years. Guilty Spark played a major role in the original trilogy, and with the revelation from the novels of his continued survival, he looks set to potentially make a comeback to the video games in this new saga. Both as a friend and enemy, Spark was always an interesting character, and the Monitor continues to be one of the more iconic parts of the franchise. Well, once again, we've reached the end of an episode. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you did, then please leave a like to show your appreciation. As always, if you have any other characters whose stories you'd like me to cover in a future episode, go ahead and suggest them in a comment down below. I've been H2Acon, and I'll see you next time on Character Case Files.